followed, and I'm looking for your response or agreement here as we go forward. Following that, we might turn to public comment and first of all ask how many might wish to comment, so we have some sense of how many of you would like to address the board. That will give us an ability to sort of think through how long each person will be allowed to speak. I mean, I think we need to be reasonable here. The board usually likes to hear from everybody, but if it turns out there are 100 people who wish to speak and they all think they want to go for 5 minutes, that won't work very efficiently. If it turns out there are 10, then there might be more time per person. So I think it would be helpful for the board that we got a sense for the number of people, perhaps put a time limit overall and a time limit per person if we have a number of people wishing to speak. Another question that's come up in regard to that process is whether or not, if a person asks a question or someone feels it's necessary to rebut a statement, whether or not the board wishes to allow that process as we go forward. One option is to say we're here for public comment to hear from you, and once we hear from you, we move on to the next person. So, and maybe we want to get a sense for the board on that issue right away. Michael?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I think it's really important to be really clear about what decision we're making this evening. The decision the board is considering this evening is not whether or not to build a wind turbine at the dump. The board is not in a position to make that decision. The board will not make that decision on our own this year or in any year. It will require a vote of town meeting. So the question on the table for the board, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think is whether or not the board intends to set a warrant article to that end for the annual town meeting for the coming April. So I'm not sure that we're here to kill or build a windmill here tonight, but the question on the table is, are we going to allow the voters at town meeting to make that decision this April, or are we not going to put that question to the voters at town meeting this April? So I hope we're not going to get into a lot of discussion, Mr. Chairman, about what's good about windmills and what's bad about windmills, because that question really is not before the board this evening. The question before the board is whether or not to allow the voters to make that decision this April or sometime in the future. And as I know my fellow members know, any citizen can gather 200 signatures and call a special town meeting to submit such a warrant. And I expect if that did happen subsequent to this meeting, there would be a special town meeting within the April town meeting anyway.
I think it's obvious that that could happen, so we all understand that. It only takes a certain amount of signatures. Yes. Catherine Stover, you have a comment to make before we have public comment?
Hope this doesn't fall out of there. Catherine Stover, Town Clerk. I wrote quite a bit about this, about a special town meeting, and I just want to stress that just because you would like it on the special, on the annual town meeting, doesn't mean it will go on the annual town meeting. I don't know if they've got all their signatures. They could decide to put it in a couple of weeks after they gather enough signatures to make sure that they have enough signatures. Mm-hmm. And if they submit it then it has to be called within 45 days of receiving it. So let's say they submit it in 2 weeks, the meeting would have to be held no later than March 3rd. So you've got that. You've got at least $5,000 to $7,000 in expenses. You've got a separate voter registration.
Catherine, I think you're getting ahead of us.
Well, no, I don't think so, because I think you really need to know that this is an issue that's
Catherine,
going to
I think
cost
it's
money.
an issue you can comment. When we get to public comment, we're happy to hear from you on that. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Patty?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to also stress again what Mike has sort of delineated what our job is here today. And to answer your question, Mr. Chairman, I would like personally to hear from the public. I know that we're going to be faced with a lot of comments, but, given that this debate, this discussion will happen, I think it's a good time to start today. And I also think that we should be very cognizant and try, without officially keeping time, to ask participants to hold their time and to be conscious of it. And maybe we can start that way, and we might have to interrupt, but I think it might be a good way to begin.
Yeah, going back to the questions or rebuttals, one way to do it is to take all comments, and board members, in my own sense, after that would have time to ask any questions they may have. The town's consultants are here, they could direct them to them, but I think the board members should have an opportunity to do that. And that also, we'll have to see how that goes, whether we need any limits or not, I'm not sure. Hopefully not. So if that's acceptable to the board, we would, Mr. Willauer?
One other possibility would be to take it issue by issue. In other words, there are about 4 or 5 significant issues, and you can discuss them, then move on to the next one, and to the next one, and to the next one. That's another opportunity.
It is. I'm not sure that ties into the prospect tonight of deciding whether to put it on the warrant or not. So if there's any further, I sense a consensus to proceed with an opportunity for those who do wish to speak. And again, we will, yes, sir?
Are you going to limit the debate to discussions that are pertinent to whether to put it on the warrant or not?
No, I think we're prepared to hear, at least I am, whatever comment they make within the time constraints of a rational period of time here and per person.
Mr. Chairman,
DeCosta?
can I make
Yes.
just an observation and a comment, please? I want to concur with what Michael said. We're not here to decide whether we should build a windmill or not at the landfill, a wind turbine, excuse me. We're here to decide if we want to put it on the town meeting floor this year. My problem with this all along has been is that we don't have adequate information to decide that at town meeting this year. I believe that. The average debate, the longest debate in 30 years of me going to town meeting, and I've been through some wild ones with the building cap and everything else, was 2 hours and 15 minutes that I can remember. This is a very complex issue that will never be vetted properly in 2 hours and 15 minutes or even 3 hours on the town meeting floor. I have been on this board since April, and I have yet to see the Energy Committee come here and give us a comprehensive presentation on what this turbine will mean to the voters and to the residents of the town of Nantucket. We have a timeline, and we have a nice little animated presentation. It doesn't go into the details of this windmill, and that is why I am opposed to putting it on town meeting floor right now. We can have all the comments in the world from the public right now, but this should have been done, or it needs to be done, over the next year. Since I've been on this board, we've had 4 meetings on the coastal management plan. We've had 0 on this. This is a much more complex issue than a coastal management plan in my mind, and I think that we need to take a year, a full year from this town meeting and vet these things and get it all out in the public, the pros and the cons, and then decide if we want to put it on the town meeting floor for the following year. There's no way that this can all be discussed between now and April. No way.
Thank you. So, again, without further ado, I think the board is in agreement that we will take comments, and Mr. Willauer, I think we're willing to take any comment people wish to make. Could I get a hand count, just roughly, how many people do wish to address the board this evening so we get a sense for what we're dealing with?
Can I make a point of order?
A point of order. Dr. West, certainly.
I think that it's only appropriate, I'm sorry. I think it's only appropriate, before you ask how many people want to speak, most of us don't know what we're speaking about. We haven't had all the facts. And I think we want to know what you think before we're going to tell you what we think.
Well, that's one way to go.
I mean, everybody has something to say here. But we want to know, how are you going to be thinking about this? And do you have any facts? I don't have any facts. I agree with what
All right, I'm not sure that's a point of order any longer. Thank you.
Pleasure.
So you've had a comment from someone who would like to hear more from us first. I'm prepared to hear from the citizens first. Is there any? I think that's where we'll proceed then. So back to the hands to give us a sense. What do we got? what, 30 hands roughly? I'm just guessing. So if you have, say, 30 people and you want to have comment for an hour, that's about 2 minutes apiece? Does that sound rough?
Not really.
Not really? No, help me with my math.
I think a minute's,
Yeah,
yeah, I think a minute is good.
A minute, we start with a minute and see where we go? So we're going to, I think you just need to be succinct and clear and tell us what's on your mind about this, and then we'll go through. We do want to hear from you. So I think we're going to start over here on the right. Yes, sir, Michael?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And I know the chair will diligently monitor repetitiveness in the public comments.
Usually my fellow board members are alert to when we start hearing repetition, and I think I've been admonished as I came to the meeting or earlier that I should have reminded you all that we don't need to hear the same comments over again. Please. All right, with that in mind, we'll start over here on the right, and the first hand I see is the gentleman there. Please come to the mic, and we'll see how we proceed. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Michael Varbelow. I believe it's premature for the board tonight to vote on whether or not to place a warrant on this, or an article on the warrant on this subject. There's so many things that we don't know yet, and I think by the time, when I say we, I'm including the board. For example, the return on investment is critical whenever you're doing a major energy efficiency or renewable energy project, and I would urge the board to take Mr. DeCosta's lead and accept it.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Going back up that row on my right, do I see a, yes, sir? Mr. Keister.
Good evening, Kevin Kuster. I've been looking for a couple of answers that have nothing to do with the HDC. One is, and I'm not seeing it in the studies and I'm not hearing about it, is how will this affect tourism? I'd like to know more about that, and I'd like to have an honest look at that. And I also think that it might be appropriate to have a new energy committee look at this. I feel like they've been ramrodding it down one solution one way, and I'm not sure that that's an objective way to look at things. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving back up that side, see no hands, we'll go to the left and go up the far side. I see a waving hand in front of me, and I will come back to you, young lady, as quickly as we move around. I'm just not sure that's the only way to get my attention. Thank you. But I see no hands going up there, so I see one in the back here. Yes, sir. The gray sweater, about 5 rows up on the left.
Me?
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Raphael Terrell, and born native here in Nantucket, and I'm here to support the wind farm. I know we do have a lot to address, and we need to learn a lot. I think we need to bring that up to the table, and I think it's a good step in the right direction. I think we need to go clean energy, and I don't know all the facts, I'll admit that. I know there's a lot of alterations we need to make, but I think we should not hold this back. We should, everything we need to learn should come out of, what the whole big process is here in the big picture. And I'm willing to support this and learn from it. And we have 2 windmills already up. So my question is, why can't we learn from those 2 and what they are projecting? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, back to the side over here. Yes, sir. Mr. Flanagan.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, members of the board as well. Jason Flanagan. I just wanted to take a moment and address a couple of facts that came up last night at the Energy Study Committee. They had cited the Pierpont study, which cites several other references which have since rebuked the work presented there because of misinterpretation of facts. They also cited the Alex Salt study on infrasound or subaudible noise that was done on guinea pigs and small animals and drew no specific conclusions about ill health. Many of the studies that I've found cite ESS and PSQI, which are specifically noted by the National Institutes of Health not to be taken in concert and are noted to be entirely subjective in their both presentation and interpretation of data, and therefore are widely disregarded. The most credible study that I could find regarding wind turbines drew the conclusion that any evidence in support of the claim of wind turbine syndrome is entirely subjective and a result of people's ill perceptions of them. In other words, there is no credible medical evidence to support their claims, and they are making themselves sick because they don't like them. I know, I can't.
All right, so with our time frame, you're moving on.
I still
Thank
have
you.
time left within that minute, thank you. The smallest installation in any case of study was multiple turbines of over a 1.5 megawatt scale. The installation at the dump is a 900 kilowatt turbine, which falls well below that threshold and also significantly below any health thresholds that may exist for either epileptics or other people sensitive to noise and sound. And lastly, I wanted to note that the majority of the studies I found are either self-referential or cite sources that no longer exist or don't exist in the first place. So if we're going to be talking about facts, please let us stick to the facts. I speak in support of this project.
Thank you.
That's not going to help.
You know, we like to say applause isn't necessary, no matter who says something you like or don't like. So if we would all respect that, I think we'll all be better off tonight. All right, now we'll come down front. Yes, Ann.
Hi, I'm Ann Cuspa. I am the chairman of the Energy Study Committee. First, I'd like to say thank you, Mr. Chairman. And how great is this, that there are so many people here. I have never seen this many people at a Board of Selectmen meeting. And I think that whatever side you're on, I really applaud you taking the time out of your day to come and show the Board of Selectmen how you feel. So that's the first thing I'd like to say. Number two, it's my opinion, well, first of all, let me say that the Energy Study Committee is a 9-person board who is appointed by the Board of Selectmen. Our mission is to look at renewable energy for the island, including other things. But that's one of the areas that we are charged with exploring. So that's where we are coming from when we get approvals from various state agencies, such as the Mass Clean Energy Center. These are actually organizations that we're working with right now. U.S. Fish and Wildlife, FAA, the UMass Amherst, the Mass Clean Energy Center. Those are, and not to mention various industry consultants that we're using to look at the project, vet out the financials, environmental impacts, health impacts, etc. So another thing I wanted to point out and remind everybody is that this initiative isn't just local. It's very easy to be on Nantucket. We're 30 miles out. It's easy to think of us as a small island, but it's a bigger initiative. It starts down at the top, Barack Obama and the Department of Energy. They are...
Hey, excuse me, just a minute, Ann. Whoever said that will please not do that. And really, it's just rude. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, they are giving us this directive. Wind power consumes no fuel, no water, and has no emissions. So that's where I ask you to remember that. You know, we've got Representative Barney Frank, who's got his backing of the wind power, Governor Deval Patrick, Representative Tim Madden, Senator Dan Wolf. These are all heavy hitters that are telling us that this is a direction that we should go in. I just want to also address a couple of issues that I know are cons, because I just want to also say that, you know, this is, as an Energy Committee member, we're looking for the best thing for the community. So it's not something that we just want to push forward a project just so that it generates money for the town. You know, we're trying to consider both sides and consider something that's going to work for us all. Financial uncertainty, regardless of whether net metering works or not, it is about fueling the dump with renewable power that is in our own control. You know, the wind is right in our backyard. We need to harness this power and tap into it. Health impacts, you know, it's debatable. The reason why we located the site at this particular site is because it's an industrial area that has already been disturbed, and it's located at a safe distance from other residential houses. This is an issue that should be brought to town voters on town meeting floor. This is something that affects all of us, and I really ask that the Board of Selectmen support the article for 2012 town meeting. The time is now. We've been looking at this for years. The studies have been done, and it's time to vote. Put it to bed. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ann.
We're going to wait till the end to ask questions.
I think we should just all wait, and we'll come back. Otherwise, we'll get on a sort of a sidetrack, Bobby, and we'll never get back. So I see a hand just behind Mr. Aronson there. Yes, lady.
My name is Kaylee Daly. I'm a student at Nantucket High School and a year-round resident. I urge you to allow the Mattakit wind turbine proposal to proceed to town meeting. It is my hope that this proposal is passed and that the turbine is built. My generation will inherit Nantucket, and I hope to do so. I hope to inherit an island with sustainable and non-polluting sources of energy for our community. Thank you.
Good, thank you for being clear and succinct. You spoke very nicely. Moving back up the side, I don't see any others, so I'll come down here. Mr. Reed, and then we'll sort of work our way around.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be brief. As you know, I represent Common Sense Nantucket, the organization that has formed in order to express their deep concerns about this project. This started with the fact that residents on the west end of the island particularly, although there are many other residents who are also concerned about this project, have come to realize that this is a proposed 30-story, the equivalent of a 30-story building, an industrial machine that will be placed in the west end of the island, will be visible for miles, and will dominate the landscape. Certainly there is a question of the impact that it will have upon the value of the properties in the west end of the island, tourism as it affects the whole island, and as we've gotten into it, my clients who are passionate about this matter have also done considerable work as to the financial viability of the project, and I know you'll be hearing from a number of them tonight that have looked into this and want to be heard on the matter. Also, the fact that the installation in Falmouth has had a very bad effect upon people in that community. Someone from there is here tonight to tell you about that as well. We don't think that this issue has had adequate airing in order to be a legitimate subject for the voters to be able to vote intelligently on at this year's town meeting, and accordingly, we'd like you to take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving back up that side over there, there's a lady in back, yes, with the,
I'd like to
would you please, I'm sorry, you have to come to the mic and let us know who you are and feel comfortable.
Hi, my name is
with the
Ingrid
mic.
Feeney, and I've lived here for a long time. I'd like to specifically address the concerns that have been brought up about the possible effects on the tourist economy. And I'd really like to point out that there are communities, islands, and towns all over the world that have transferred to a completely green economy, and it brings thousands of visitors. And ecotourism is an immensely lucrative sector of the tourist economy. And that's pretty much it. It was just, one small point.
Good, well, thank you. All right, I'm going across the back, the gentleman in the middle standing.
Hi, my name is Andrew McCandless. I also grew up on Nantucket. And I think that if we're concerned about bringing this to town meeting because we feel like the public hasn't been educated enough about the issue, that should be our goal. And I think that if we're talking about bringing it to town meeting in a number of months, that there are certainly steps that can be taken in that interim time to educate the voters and as much as we need to. I also wanted to say that I think that this project has the potential to be symbolic for Nantucket in a very positive way. That even if we are not converting Nantucket to a green economy, part of what makes Nantucket special is the natural beauty, the same natural beauty that some people who are speaking tonight against the wind turbine are so interested in. But I would say that the turbine and green energy in general really helps to bolster our feelings of how important the island is from a naturalist perspective. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Again, moving across the back. All right, I'll come down here. There's a hand over here. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for letting me speak before your board and before your town. My name is Neil Anderson. I live in Falmouth, 1,320 feet from Falmouth Wind 1. It's a larger turbine, but the blades are the problem. I'm here to give you facts, okay? First fact, I came here on my own. I volunteered to come over here. I approached them. Second fact, I have been in the alternative energy business for 35 years. I'm an Energy Star builder. Alternative energy is more important to me than probably anyone in this room. This, people, is not the way to do it. This is from my own Board of Health in Falmouth that was issued on this past summer. The members of the Falmouth Board of Health met with residents concerned about the effects of wind turbines multiple times during the past year. Residents living in close proximity to the wind turbines expressed concerns about swishing and thumping noises with pressure changes that can be consistent, intermittent, inconsistent, or absent depending on the weather conditions. They are also concerned about the low-frequency sound energy that is being produced by the turbines. The table below summarizes their health-related and associated concerns. There's 39 items on here. I will mention a couple of them. Sleep disturbance, headaches, nausea, tinnitus, vertigo, difficulty concentrating, depression, chronic stress. I've suffered from all of these. My family has suffered from all of these. A lot of my neighbors have suffered from all of these. I've spoken at an awful lot of these meetings before communities, and I ask myself, what can I do to tell these people that this is the wrong way to do it? You have options. I have a neighbor, Mason Drummy, spent a day last spring moving his bedroom from the front of the house to the back of the house. He was complaining he couldn't sleep. He said his walls were thumping. Mason is 10 years old. He was losing sleep, and it was affecting his schoolwork. My next door neighbor is a retired ambassador to the United States. He's in his 70s. His doctor told him, stay away as much as possible. It's bad for your heart. Heart pressure, palpitations. These things are real, people. This turbine is only 500 feet tall. 900 megawatts, 900 kilowatts, 324 feet tall. But the problem is the low frequency. You can't see it, but it's right there, okay? The DEP does not control it, but that is what does the damage. It's a pulse, consistent pulse, and you cannot stop it. It goes everywhere. We have a woman in Falmouth who's almost 3 miles away who has affected, this has had an effect on her health. It's not good. You have options, people. Please, solar photovoltaics, gasification at the plant, 324-foot wind turbine is not the way to do it. and it's tough for me to talk against alternative energy, but when it affects people's health, I'll be there. So,
Sir,
think
thank
about
you.
that. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yes, right there in back with the glasses. Yes, sir. Come on up.
Good evening. Thanks for allowing me to speak. My name is Eric Bibler. I'm not from Nantucket. I'm president of an organization called Save Our Seashore in Wellfleet. It's based in Wellfleet. And I'm here tonight for the same reason that Neil Anderson came to see you. I know more about wind turbines than I ever wanted to know. I didn't know anything about them 2 years ago until there was a proposal to build one of them on a parcel of town-owned land in the middle of Wellfleet, in the middle of the national park. And the superintendent was for it. Neil is, I don't have a wind turbine within miles of me, and never will. Neil is one of your human guinea pigs. I heard someone mention earlier tonight Dr. Alex Salt in a derogatory manner. Dr. Salt is just a towering figure in medicine. He's one of the foremost experts in the physiology of the ear. He's not some guy playing in his garage with guinea pigs. I want to make two types of comments to you tonight. One is about process, and I want to seize on comments that Mr. DaCosta made, because I've been through this in many communities, and I worked very hard over the past year to, in an effort to endow the Cape Cod Commission with the authority to, which they ultimately achieved last year, to regulate all wind turbines on Cape Cod. The reason they achieved that authority is because it was recognized that these installations are so huge and so profound that they're considered developments of regional impact, and they cross borders and they broadcast their effects over very large expanses. I'd also like to mention briefly, I wanted to say with respect to process that normally in almost every town, and certainly with the Cape Cod Commission, the Cape Cod Commission process would involve months of hearings, it would involve submissions of expert testimony, it would involve many nights of citizens being able to come before you and communicate their concerns. It would involve a whole discovery process and a public education process that would take into account all of the stakeholders who are involved, and those include, you know, historic preservation, natural preservation, non-resident property holders. There are whole classes of stakeholders that aren't being considered here. I hope you'll indulge me in more than a minute.
Not much more, or else I'm going to be in trouble with my fellow board members. So,
can someone yield time to me?
no, we're not going to go through yielding time. You know, we're not the Senate here, folks. Although sometimes I feel we get into sort of hearing mode.
Okay.
Okay, so if you want to wrap up quickly, that's fine, but we're not here to go on.
I think process is very important, and I think you need a discovery process. That's the first thing. And I think you need to be very, very careful, and I don't see what is the crazy rush to get this done in a short amount of time. And the most important thing is, by their own admission, the selectmen don't really know much about this. There's no point in getting a little bit pregnant with a $3.5 million bond authorization. It's far better for your voters and your selectmen and your planning board and your finance committee and everyone else to be fully educated before they cast a vote. Otherwise, you have an ignorant voting population that is voting on something they have no idea of the implications.
That's a wrap up. Thank you. Coming back down front. Yes, sir. Mr. Taylor.
Good evening. My name's Ted Taylor. I've been a resident here for quite a number of years. My background is in engineering. I had the dubious honor of building the first desalinization plant in the United States in Morro Bay, California, back in 1962. It was a failure. It closed 3 years after it opened. I think the most important thing is there's been a lot of noise made about this project. There are so many facets to it that have to be studied. I don't see how you could bring it to town meeting this year. It's got to come to town meeting eventually, period. But there's just too much to be done, to be studied. I look at this thing and I can see a number of things real quick like that I would have questions on, that why don't we look at this or look at that part of it. And then you have the problem of educating the public. And I will tell you, that is not easy. It's very difficult to educate the public because they are resistant to change. So that's my comments for tonight. Let's take it one step at a time. Let's take it slowly and go thoroughly into it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Do I see a hand? Yes. Yes. The lady with the gray, hope I got the color right, sweater?
Steel.
Say again?
Steel.
Steel. Thank you.
My name is Leslie Forbes, and I am co-president of the Tristram's Long Pond Homeowners Association. We have worked very hard to educate the people who live out there. It is a complicated issue. There's a lot of information. So we have alerted people to workshops, we've encouraged them to come, told them about balloon viewings, sent them to websites, whether it's the Mattacketwind.org or Common Sense Nantucket. We've tried to be as impartial as possible, get out there, get information. We've had newsletters that we've sent and asked both sides to submit an article, proponents and opponents. Finally, we surveyed our residents, our members, in the last 14 days. It takes time to do this, so we just got to it a couple weeks ago. I feel that we worked hard to educate our population, and in fact, one of the questions we asked them was, do you feel educated? And almost 50% of them said they did. And then we asked them if they wanted more information, and more of them said they did not. But as a result, the final thing is that 88% of the respondents said they were opposed to the wind turbine at the landfill. That's what I have to say.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir, with the hand going up the side, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jim Aylward. I'm with Common Sense Nantucket. Just before I start, I just wanted to say that we are supportive of green energy, but not every green energy solution is correct in every place. What I want to address are the health issues. The main thing that, as we've heard from Neil Anderson from Falmouth, are the sub-audible noise waves that are called infrasound. And these are very real. They affect people. They affect people who work and live nearby, up to 2 miles from the turbine. These vibrations cause ear, lung, and heart problems. It's sort of like having an extra heartbeat in your head. It really gets you all messed up. So these are potential liabilities for the town. And according to Selectman Willauer at last night's Energy Committee meeting, the town is liable for all of these injuries. There are 800 residential properties within 1.5 miles of the proposed turbine site. And there are 40 full-time workers at the DPW and at the landfill itself. They are within 500 feet of this proposed turbine. They work 8 to 10 hours a day, about the same time that you would live in a house if you work outside. My question to the selectmen and for consideration is the town prepared to accept this liability? Is it worth the risk? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Yes, in the middle, up back.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Sam Golding. I'm a native of Nantucket, and I work for a firm called Local Power, which supports local democratic control of renewable energy. The Energy Study Committee represents a wealth of expertise and a very open public process. Wind turbines are not rocket science. It's a mature industry. 4 months is ample time to vet all of the aspects of this project. And to respond to your colleague's point about rushing it, now is precisely the time when there's controversy and a vocal minority to press the issue and to drag all the details out in the open. Thank you.
Good, thank you. All right, in the middle here, Mr. Weld, Dr. Weld.
Francis Weld, Nantucket Town. First of all, I'd like to, on behalf of everyone here, thank the Energy Study Committee for 3 years of volunteer work. And frankly, it's my opinion, having read the reports that have been generated and their response to criticisms of the project, that they've done a fantastic job with objective rather than subjective analyses and study of the problem of wind turbine electrical generation. I'm ready to vote, and I would like to see this on the warrant for the town meeting in April. And anyone who feels unprepared should request these materials from the Energy Study Committee, which has done, as I said, a very good job, a very detailed job of presenting the data. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Gentleman way up in back with a tall right hand, come on down. That's you.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Chuck. I live out in the West End. Lindner. Very important issue to me, myself and my family. But it's not about pros and cons of this wind turbine at this point. It's about dollars and cents. And as a board, it's your reliability to make sure about the money and the liability factor. All the issues that are unknown that will be coming down your way will come back to this wind turbine project. It's going to be the vibration that loosens the sand, and the homeowners are going to come in lots looking for money from you. It's a devaluation of the property. The landfill's already in the backyard. You want to put a wastewater treatment plant in the backyard. Now you want to put a wind turbine in the backyard. You're going to take my property value down to nothing out there. I came here to establish a future with my family, and we're questioning if we're going to go ahead and do it. We're not going to pay the fees. We're not going to pay the local carpenters and the builders. We're not going to progress. This is going to be lost income for this island. And you have to look at that across the board from the West End. They're not going to continue to buy the real estate. They're not going to develop, and you're going to lose the money that you think you're saving in some of these issues. Think about it. It's dollars and cents, and it's your liability to the town not to let this get to town vote. Don't leave it up to the voters. Make sure it doesn't happen.
All right. Yes, sir, right here in front.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. David Worth. What I want to address is the project financials on this, and I do so from a background in the project finance arena and a former chief executive officer of a large international company. First of all, there's only one financial scenario that's been produced by the Energy Committee. Arguably, it is the most optimistic scenario that is out there. It's usual and customary in this, with these kinds of projects on the private sector, to take a look at a range of risks that's associated with these projects. What is the downside financially to these projects? What could go wrong? It doesn't mean that the project should be postponed or put off, but you need, when you make decisions, to understand what the downside risks are. Likewise, you ought to understand what the upside opportunity is, and then there's a range of things in between. The committee has not looked at the downside to this project, and it's certainly not presented anything other than a rosy projection of the financial outcome. This project's going to go on for 20 years. There's an awful lot that will happen in 20 years that will have an impact upon the financial performance of this turbine. I could give you a list of the variables that ought to be considered in any sort of analysis that takes place. And I'm not going to bore you with that because many of them are technical, but These are really critical elements that go into this. I guess finally, from my perspective, I think the board has the fiduciary responsibility to understand the financial aspects of this project before it sends it to town meeting. This is a very complex issue. It's got a lot of permutations, and you will not have a good discussion at town meeting about this. And from my perspective, again, I think it's your fiduciary responsibility to the town to have fully vetted the project financially before you go forward. Thank you.
Good, thank you. We'll come back over here. Yes, sir, I'll go up top and I'll come back to you in just a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Charlie Stott with the Mattocket Homeowners Association, and I join our sister organization, the Tristram's Long Pond Association, in opposing, as an organization, the construction of this wind turbine. We joined Tristram's Long Pond Association in educating our members and surveying our members, and in our case, 73% of those surveyed were opposed to the turbine and only 18% supported it. And if you count those who had formed an opinion, excluding those who wanted more information, it rose to 80% opposition to the turbine among responding members. And I suspect that a lot of the reasons for their feeling that way have already been articulated tonight. The economics, health and safety issues, sound, shadow flicker, and so on. But I think in our case, folks, our members are very environmentally conscious and invested in Mattocket because they love the natural beauty. And I think it's a question largely of aesthetics, that this 324-foot structure would be a blight on the landscape out in Mattocket, one of the primary reasons why folks purchase property out there. It's not because our members are opposed to green energy. In fact, I have submitted a citizen's petition calling for the designation of a solar energy overlay district at the Mattocket landfill and the 3 surrounding town-owned properties that constitute 190 acres, certainly sufficient land to build a large solar array that would equal or exceed the power to be produced by the proposed turbine. There are other options that I think have been mentioned, gasification being one. So it's not a question of being opposed to conservationism or green energy. It's a question of the aesthetics in an area where there's just beautiful natural beauty that is unparalleled. Thanks so much for your consideration.
All right, thank you. Yes, Malcolm?
Thank you. Malcolm McNabb. I'm speaking for myself, not as a member of the Board of Health. We've heard a lot tonight, but we have to separate what I call fact from hypothesis, and I'm just going to speak about some of the health issues. There are some clear facts, and I think the facts have gotten mixed with hypothesis. Facts. Loud noise affects people's health. Multiple studies have shown it. There was a beautiful study last year, I'm sorry, I haven't caught up yet. But in a very large number of people, well-designed, proper statistics, proper analysis, but that was done in workers in high noise environment. Often studied, quoted, is the work done by the Portuguese group about some of these syndromes. All their work has been done in airplane pilots and mechanics that work on aircraft engines. The hypothesis is to translate that to windmill noise. Data is just not there. What has been collected has been anecdotal. It has not been controlled. It's been in small numbers of patients and small numbers of people without any proper analysis. And I don't think we're going to learn any more between now and April or between now and April next year. So please understand that there's facts and hypothesis, and you have to make your decisions on facts, not hypothesis. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think we're going to need a tape break.
Gino, tape break? Tape break, folks. Here, there's one in back on the left. But please recognize it's now, we're doing okay, but there is a point where we'll need to really move along. Yes, sir.
Don Walker, 10-year, year-round resident. If I remember correctly, you started this whole discussion by saying, actually, Mr. Kofkoff did, that when we get to the end of this, you folks are going to determine whether or not this goes on the town warrant. My question is, what do you folks have a common understanding and agreed to set of criteria that you're going to make your decision on? Mr. DaCosta brought up fiscal. I've heard emotional. I've heard reasons why this should or shouldn't be included on, and I've heard good or bad business sense or business judgment. So I'm just hoping that when we get to the end, you folks have a common understanding and an agreement as to what you're going to take and decide this whole issue. That's it.
Thank you.
That'll be a first, Mr. Chairman, for us.
You know, yeah. I won't say anything. We'll get there. Yes, here, the lady right? Yes, you.
Hi. Thanks a lot. My name is Amy Zielinski. I'm a year-round resident here on Nantucket, and I live with the windmill every day. I look out my bathroom window. I sent you guys an email, so if you read it, I apologize. I just want to reiterate a little bit. I look out my bathroom window every day, and I see the windmill at the high school, and I actually think it's really beautiful, and it makes me smile. And I also work at Bartlett's Farm, so when I go to work every day, I see that windmill and I live with it, and I see the impact that it has, not only on the farm but on my life and my coworkers. And I'm here, I'm fine. I also want to talk about a little bit about education. I can't remember the first meeting I went to out in Mattakit to learn about the windmill, but it was in the spring, maybe, and summer. It was months ago. So I don't know how people can say they haven't had time to learn about it, because I've taken the time to educate myself about it, because I care about it. I care about where I live, and I want to do what's best for this island. So I hope the board that you will please consider letting us decide what's best for the island by bringing this article to town meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Please. Yes, sir. Right back here. Yeah.
Mark Palmer, about an 18-year landowner in Mattakit. I started as a summer person and kind of evolved into I'm a year-rounder as of about a year ago. And I'm environmentally sort of active in issues of noise control, mosquito control, and dark skies. I had a list of questions I wanted to ask about the project itself, but given the selectman's unbiased comments on, whether we ought to bring it to vote, if that's really the issue, then the question is, do we have enough factual information before the public to allow the public to further debate the issue and come to some sort of vote? And I think the answer is, you have two websites. There's mattaketwind.org. It's full, it's deep, there's plenty of credible information. There's years worth of research contained in that website. Go look at it. And then there's an opposition website, which, go look at that. I mean, it's the opposite. I'm trying to find a nice way to say that, but it's full of speculation. It's full of hearsay and anecdotal opinion. And I think anybody who can read and can tell fact from fiction can look at these two. The Mattakit Wind website has got an open process. Everything that's been sent to them, they've got a full page of very deep factual refutations from the opposition. And if you look at the opposition website, there's not even one link to mattaketwind.org, which is the authoritative site. It's the official site. I mean, you go on their links page, there's no information about the response from the energy group on the opposition website. It's as if they don't want you to know the official source exists. And so I was initially undecided on whether I wanted to support this project, but looking at both those websites, I'm in favor of it and I want to bring it to vote. And my final point is, the time frame is what, 20 years for this, 15 years? I think in an ocean environment that might be a little bit optimistic, and in the big scheme of things, 10 or 20 years is not that long. So if it doesn't work out, it's going to expire, it's going to be decommissioned. If it doesn't work out, it can be shut down, and that's all funded. So what's the problem? Let people decide. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, yes, right in the front row.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Sally Beckwith, lived here year-round for about 22 years. At first, I was very supportive of this, but the more I've heard over the last couple of months about some different issues, I have a lot of concerns. And especially, we had two people come from other places where they found it was very detrimental to have them there. And I think we need to look at that and understand just what they're saying. I think more study needs to be done before, and more information has to come out before we could really bring it to town meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll come back over to this side, going up around. How about Barbara Gookin?
Hi, I'm Barbara Gookin. I live in Fisher's Landing, and I've been a Nantucket year-round resident for 20 years. I used to be on the Energy Committee, so I have a lot of information that maybe other people don't have, but all of that information, as someone pointed out, is online at, is it acenergy.org?
Maticatwind.org.
Oh, maticatwind.org, and hopefully people watching TV will take note of that as well. I'm going to skip over a lot of my notes and make it really brief. I think the town should pursue this and other energy efficiencies and other energy projects, including the proposed solar projects. I think this is a super important decision for the future of Nantucket, and all of the voters at town meeting should be able to make that decision as it affects their hometown. There's 4 months between now and town meeting. It's plenty of time. You've already captured everybody's attention. Everyone at home is watching this on TV. If they didn't know about it, they know about it now. If you put it on the town meeting warrant, everyone will want to know more about it between now and April. And there's certainly plenty of Energy Committee meetings, public hearings that could be held. I think it could be fully vetted. Everyone's questions could be answered. And plenty of questions can be answered just by looking online. I want to point out that the site that is being looked at has been looked at for 20 years for wind turbines. This particular proposal is 4 years old. Last year, it was supposed to be on the town meeting warrant, and the Board of Selectmen decided, let's wait till next year. That's now. Let's do this. You have everyone's attention. Let's move forward. Let's vote in April. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir. Right there.
Good evening. I'm Dan Canais, a Nantucket homeowner. I've helped organize, I guess, if you will, Common Sense Nantucket. I have 3 concerns for you. One is that Mr. Anderson and other people who have been injured by wind turbines aren't hypotheses. They aren't experiments. They're real people. And I think we need to be careful about this, that it's easy to talk about this in this big scientific way, but there are real people being injured, and there are real people who can be injured here on Nantucket by this turbine. So I think we need to be conscious of that. Secondly, I think that the Energy Study Committee's website paints such a rosy picture that it doesn't give the public the full picture. We had no intent or desire to start a website. We're not here to fight this. We believe in green energy. At the end of the day, though, it paints the rosiest picture I've ever seen. And as selectmen, if you think the role of the Energy Study Committee, as I saw in their charter, is to be advisory, it's kind of interesting that it's advisory only on one side of the issue. Everything on there is rosy. There is nothing wrong with a wind turbine if you look at their website. That's not reality. Real life is that there are problems with wind turbines. Finally, there are other alternatives. Conservation gets almost no discussion. We can solve more of these problems with conservation. We don't have to tear the community apart. We have an opportunity to work together. We want to work on this. We believe in common sense. Again, we didn't want to do this. And I think to say that the Common Sense Nantucket website is the counter to the Energy Study Committee, we have no paid consultants. We have other lives. We did this in 4.5 weeks because we had to, and it didn't get the publicity it should have gotten. We got no letters. We live nearby. This will have an impact for miles. And I think at the end of the day that the selectmen and the community should require the Energy Study Committee to present both sides of the issue and not paint it over as all positive. There are other alternatives. There are ways to clean up our water. Gasification creates an opportunity to make more money for the community, to clean up the water on the west end, to potentially avoid having to build, or at least delay having to build a wastewater treatment plant out there. We need to think about these alternatives and give it some time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll go up and back, a tall gentleman with a cap.
Dear Mr. Chairman, dear board, I think what common sense is trying to tell us.
What's your name?
My name is Tobias Glidden, for the record. Thank you. I think what common sense is trying to tell us is bananas. Build absolutely nothing anywhere. I have many things on my mind, many things to say. But tonight, I will say just one thing. In a democracy, the 99% decide. Let the local people of Nantucket decide at town meeting, and only at town meeting. Lastly, in the words of Henry David Thoreau, rather than love, than money, than fame, give me truth. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Moving back here, there's a hand in the, yes, with the gray, dark hair. Yep, you got it.
Good evening, board. My name is Bobby King, 34 years local and counting. I come here tonight to ask the board to let the process take its course, to question our integrity, to question our intelligence. Nantucketers from the beginning have been independent thinkers, and to not allow this to go through, to not allow us to make a decision is justly wrong. Thank you.
Good. Yes, sir. The lady there with the red sweater with her hand up.
I'm Tracy Pattenden. This is a very big issue for the island, pro or against. Would prefer to bring the island people together. I think in that we should have more discussion. I think the facts for either side of this equation can wait another year. That's all I'd like to say. Oh, one other thing. We can get our green energy. There is a hookup in Maine that is already producing wind energy that is through National Grid. I think we can use that for a little while longer till we determine what is best for Nantucket. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, the gentleman in the far back in the center, is that? Yeah, is that Carl? Carl, I should have known. How could I miss you?
You're at about an hour, Mr. Chairman.
And just so everybody understands, we're at about an hour, and we're going to have to pick up the pace depending on how many more of you wish to speak. Carl, sorry to start that with you, but you just happened to show up.
I just wanted to say, it's Carl Borchert. I'm a former member of the Energy Study Committee, and we worked on it for 3.5 years. It's been worked on for over 4 years. Every meeting has been public. All our minutes have been posted. All the information has been posted on the web. And there have been a number of forums over the last year that have been public and announced for educational purposes. But my main point is that community wind is working in other areas. Hull, Massachusetts has 2 large turbines, and there have been no problems. They're actually closer to residences and businesses than Falmouth. Portsmouth, Rhode Island has 2 large turbines, one at Portsmouth Abbey and one at Portsmouth High School, and there's no problems there. Mass Maritime Academy has a large turbine right across the street from residences, and there's no trouble there. Hyannis has 3 turbines, 3 Northwind 100s in operation, and there's been no problems there. There's been no major trouble with the Nantucket High School turbine. And there's, as far as Falmouth goes, I'm not sure what to think of that. I went there myself on 2 different occasions and 2 different weather conditions, to the gates of the wastewater plant and to Blacksmith Shop Road, and I only heard the wind in the bushes, didn't hear the turbine. So I urge you to put this before a town meeting, before the voters, and let us decide. And I think we do have time in the next 4 months to learn more. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, up in the back, and yep, there you go. Again, we're going to please pick up the pace.
Hi, my name's Aiden Feeney, and for me, I think what's important about this project is that it's about local control as much as it's about renewable energy. And the woman in the red sweater was saying that we could rely on a project in Maine that's tied into the national grid, but that project is actually through a Canadian company, and they're blasting mountaintop ridges up there, and I'd much rather see it done here through the town. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Now, all right, in the middle here and then up top. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Karen Palmer, and I'm a resident of Dionis. And I'd like to address an issue that's related to the financial discussion that we haven't brought up yet, which is the impact on real estate valuation from a town-wide tax revenue perspective. In mid-December, Common Sense Nantucket received from the GIS office a number of files related to the assessor's database that looked at properties at a half a mile, a mile and a half, and 2 miles away from the landfill parcel. And in looking at that, we also considered the results of the McCann appraisal that was commissioned for the town of Brewster that sought to evaluate, using appraisal methodology, the impact on real estate valuation, and we applied that to it. The results we found, frankly, are compelling. And specifically, using the assessor's database and taking out all of the association property, the government property, and the conservation property, we looked at over 800 residential parcels within a mile and a half of the turbine site. Keep in mind, this is virtually the entire western portion of Nantucket. It's not Matticat Village, it's not Hither Creek, it's not one space, it's virtually the entire west end of the island. That represented $1.4 billion in assessed property values. And if Nantucket, as is predicted for other types of communities that are similar, sees a 25% decrease in the property valuation, that means a negative impact to tax revenues of $1.3 million on an annual basis. If you go more conservative and go to 15% negative decrease due to the wind turbine, that's $780,000 a year negative to the tax revenue base. The Energy website has proclaimed openly that the savings from going to this 324-foot industrial wind machine in the west end of Nantucket are approximately $1,000 a day or $365,000 a year. The rough work that we've done project a significant loss. And make no mistake, that loss isn't just going to be borne by the Nantucket taxpayers. They're not, the West End taxpayers, they're not going to be making up all of that shortfall. That's going to be borne by every single taxpayer on the island. So if you live in Sconset and this happens, you could have a negative impact on your real estate tax bill. And certainly we can take a look at various scenarios, but I would ask the board to seriously consider, as you consider the financing, the forward impact to tax revenues for the town and island of Nantucket, as well as all Nantucket taxpayers.
Okay, thank you. Now we're now just because pretty soon my fellow board members are going to shut this down. So yes, up and back, the lady there with your hand up.
Good evening. My name's Mary Gamby. I'm a year-round resident at 160 Matticat Road. When I retired after 40 years of teaching, my husband said, "Where do you want to retire to?" And I said, "Well, there's only one place. It's Nantucket. There is a magnet that draws us here. And it's the sea. It's the beauty of the land. It's the night sky. And it's not just the West End. This is a community. This is Nantucket that is different from some of the towns on the Cape, other areas. We're 25 miles out to sea. We need each other. This it will not just affect the West End. This will affect everyone on this beautiful natural island. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yep, up and back. Shall we agree that 7:30 is the cutoff time no matter what for the public comment period? Thank you all.
Hi, good evening. My name's Karen Oberg-Gomes. I've been a resident
Just pull the mic down.
here for 25 years. I'm a homeowner, and I think it's really important to have a windmill. I think windmills are beautiful. I think we have to change our perspective on the visual of a windmill. It's a beautiful thing because we're not depending on fuel and all the darkness and the black and the problems that gasoline and the fuel industry is providing. Wind is nature, and it's free, and it can be a beautiful thing. I wouldn't mind if they put a windmill in my backyard. I actually live close to the one at the high school. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't make me worry that my house is going to depreciate. I would feel honored to have a windmill. I would on Nantucket, whether it's in my yard or anyone else's. And I hope we get one because I have children and I want them to have an island. I don't want it to go underwater because we keep depending on fossil fuels. I want to keep our island beautiful and have stars and see a windmill. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, anybody else? I think, didn't you already speak?
I did.
Yeah, so you're all set. Up and back, Mr. Giles, is that you? Right. You trying to sneak in, thought I wouldn't recognize you? We're alert here.
Sorry, my knees stiffened up standing back there. I'll be quick. My concerns all along have been with finance, and I've been having trouble getting real numbers. The last thing I heard about a payback time on this project from the Finance Committee was 11 years, which is a long time for a project like this. But the thing I really want to talk about is something different, and it's why are we considering putting on the taxpayers of Nantucket, the residents of Nantucket, a $4 million loan over 20 years to do a project that is really better done by private industry. Why don't we look at those companies all over, green companies? Are we looking into that alternative of having a company come in and study it from a business, real true business perspective, and look at it and say, is this something we can do that we can make money as a company and the town can get lower costs? Maybe it won't be as much, but we'll get rid of the risk of a $4 million loan out there for 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Yes, sir. Right back there on my left, about the 6th row up. Your hand is just sort of like that. Yes, that's you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Selectmen, I'm Bruce Mandel, live in Matticat. Many of the comments that I was going to make have already been made. We've heard discussions about there are no or there are few health impacts, and there are. We've had people come to us and say they really have been affected, and we've had other people say, oh no, they haven't. We've had discussions about the pro formers and what this new business for the town is going to do for us. But before we fund a new business for the town that the town has never run before or put it to a vote, I think it's incumbent upon the study committee to prove to us, to everyone, that the finances have been well thought out, the assumptions are correct, and that the assertions about adverse health impacts are false. Prove it. All kinds of studies back and forth. But we should have some kind of proof about this. And just to go to my conclusion, I think we should all be striving, and I think we are, for a broader vision of the future of our island. A place where the community is not divided by issues like this, where we all try to conserve energy, save our town money, and do our share to promote green ways to address such things as landfill management, aquifer protection, where we all live together equally as Nantucketers, who are not encumbered by having to pay for a failed new town business based on unanalyzed risks. And last night we even heard from the Energy Committee that they would like some help in running some additional pro formas to analyze some of these risks. We should take the time to analyze them. In closing, I just wanted to say that I think that all Nantucketers matter. In a couple of months, I think in the calm retrospect, we need to look back and be able to say that we didn't do any harm with whatever decision we make. If you need more time to make a decision, please take it. But at the end of the day, please don't do any harm to any of us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Over on the right, Catherine. And pre-announced, we have 2.5 minutes left.
Okay, well, that'll be me then. Okay. I've worked up some things about special town meetings, special elections, and the annual town meeting. And because there's different registration dates, you're going to have special registration dates, you're going to have special ads, you're going to have overtime and all that sort of thing. And I think there are people out there that are collecting signatures, and I think they're pretty much hell-bent on having their say about this. So I'm just thinking it would be so much cheaper and easier and less confusing if we just put it on the annual town meeting and election. If you have an appropriation that's done by special town meeting, you're going to have, it has to be done in 45 days unless it's all submitted, before you accept your warrant. And I don't think that's enough time to educate people. So I'm thinking that it would be just so much easier, certainly for my office, because we're inundated with stuff right now, and just to put it on the annual and the annual election.
We're almost done, Whitey. And we have time for one more. Yes, ma'am, you're the winner. Or however you want to look at that.
Hi, my name is Irene Oakley Schreiber, and as much as I hate speaking in public, I really feel that I have to okay. Hi, Irene Oakley Schreiber. As much as I hate speaking in public, I just really felt that I had to speak up. I live across the street from the high school. And I would like you people, I know education is the process here, I would like you all to look online at wind turbine syndrome. I have been suffering, I am one of those real people that a gentleman had talked about. I have been suffering from vertigo, not being able to sleep, nausea, headaches, along with many of my neighbors who are suffering from migraine headaches. I would have never made a connection ever with the wind turbine until I had gone through a vast amount of tests, CAT scans. I've seen specialists at Mass General, the specialist who takes care of the neurologist who is in charge of the vertigo department. No one seems to be able to find out what is going on here, and the only connection that we could make was my first appointment with Dr. Pearl about the not sleeping and the vertigo was 2 weeks after that wind turbine went into service. And it's not pretend. I mean, these are real people who are having problems with this. People who have light sensitivity, people who are prone to migraine headaches. It's not everyone, but there is a big percent of the community. Falmouth closed their wind turbine down because of health reasons. All over the world, if you look online, people are having trouble with this. And I think before we put this amount of money and this amount of time into putting a wind turbine in that will eventually have to be shut down and taken away at the cost of millions of dollars, I think that we ought to think about it, table it, educate our people. It's really important. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're at the end of our public comment period, and sort of by pre-discussion, we agreed that board members would have an opportunity to ask questions or explore issues and comment to the board members. After that, we would close all discussion and have a discussion by the board, and we'll deliberate on a course of action without further input from the public. So be happy to start with the gentleman on my right who has his hand up, Mr. Willauer.
Yes, I noticed that our two consultants over there have been taking notes, and I wondered if they would like to respond to some of the situations that have been brought up.
Before we get to that, I think we ought to think, is this an open-ended item or a specific question addressed by us, or how do you look at that? I mean, I think that's an issue for the board to think about here. So, Mr. Kopko, happy to hear from any one of my colleagues on this subject.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure that an open-ended discussion on the technical and fiscal merits of a wind turbine at the Mattocket landfill is an appropriate discussion for us to have here at this table tonight. Nantucket is blessed with a form of government, I guess some of us think blessed, where we have an open town meeting, and like in some other New England towns, Nantucket is one of the last bastions of direct democracy in the United States. And we have vested the highest governmental authority in our government on this island in town meeting. Town meeting makes the laws. We don't make the laws here. The only authority the board has here, there will be, Mr. Chairman, there will be a warrant put to a town meeting to consider the question of borrowing the funds to build this turbine in the year 2012. I think everybody in this room understands that that will happen, whether by citizens petition or by action of the board. And my own take on this is that, and this is my own take, my own thought process. The process of leading, to me, is for us to put the question to the voters in a positive manner, not advocate for the question, but put a positive article on town meeting and put the question to the community. That gives the community X number of months to learn what they need to learn. This process has been going on for years. There's lots of data out there. All of the issues that were discussed here tonight, touched on, pro and con. I trust the voters of Nantucket at town meeting to decide whether or not the financials have been vetted sufficiently for them to vote in favor of the project. I trust the voters at town meeting to decide whether or not the health and technical aspects of this project are up to their standards. It's their decision to make. So, Mr. Chairman, I, for one, will support the board offering an article at town meeting and taking a leadership role rather than following a citizen's petition into a special town meeting, which we know will happen regardless. That's my position.
Thank you for the comment. Anybody else wish to speak? Mr. Willer, I think if we follow up on the comment Mr. Kopko made in terms of the technical or answering questions, I'm not sure the board feels it will be totally helpful, but at this point, I think the issues are other than that. Bobby?
Mr. Chairman, if I may indulge you for a minute, what Whitey's asking here is exactly why I will not vote for this tonight. Because this is the first forum that we've had as a board about this. And we're not going to resolve this in one night. And this is my problem with putting it on town meeting floor this April. It won't be resolved on town meeting floor. There are a lot of questions about this that are unanswered that the people need to know the answers to, and I need to know the answers to. Ms. Kutzba, who is the chairman of the Energy Committee, just said that the health impacts are debatable and that net metering doesn't matter. Well, it does matter to me, Ann. If we don't have net metering, this is going to cost us money. It's not going to save us money. It is going to cost us money regardless because it's going to go under our tax bill and the credit is going to go into the general fund. So our taxes are going to go up. If we don't have net metering, then we don't make enough money for it to pay for itself. Is that not right, Lauren? That's what you told me last night.
Well, actually, the numbers that we've seen, so that if, with the net metering eligibility, that the revenues do cover debt service and operating expenses with the...
The numbers that you've seen. I haven't seen the numbers, so...
Just one comment. When we're going to ask questions, which is fine, I think we decided the board could do that. I think they're going to have to come to the mic. That's all I meant.
Yeah, well, all I'm saying is that I would like to see these numbers, and I'd like to have more than 5 minutes to look at these numbers. We have the responsibility of the voters of this town to make sure what goes to town meeting is supposed to be there. If it's going to do harm to people or if it's going to cost them money, I want to know about it.
Gotcha. Board members, I have a comment I'd like to make, but why do you want to have your hand?
Well, if we have a, let's just take the economics, Bob. And if we need to get more information as far as the economics are concerned, why don't we get the people that are most knowledgeable together and have them come up with some kind of situation that would cover that? Why don't we do that?
How long have you had the numbers, Whitey?
Don't quiz me, please.
Well,
I'm making a suggestion.
Just a minute. All right, guys,
Yeah.
team, if we're going to go through this, when someone has the floor, we'll let them finish their comment.
So I
and
would
then we
like
can
to,
go from there.
I'd like to see us get together, maybe put David Worth and our two consultants that have been doing our cost estimating and model building and flush all of this out. I think that's the way to go with this particular issue. Now, does the board think that's a wise way to go?
Well, that's what we're here to discuss tonight. Michael, Patty, do you want to say anything now, or just before we go ahead? I'll be happy to sort of, before we came tonight, I drafted a resolution just to help me go through my own thought process, what I think would be a proper decision for tonight. So I'll just read it. I'm not sure whether the board has any inclination to agree with it, but I will feel better, and that's a part of a response to Dr. West. So, and I would say in that context, I have attended a number of the Energy Study Committee meetings, probably amongst this board more than any others. So my proposal tonight was as follows, except for Mr. Willard, who's a member of the committee full-time. All right, so the Board of Selectmen recognizes the dedication, commitment, accomplishments, and initiatives of the Nantucket Energy Study Committee and does hereby reaffirm the mission of the Energy Study Committee, which is to report to the Board of Selectmen on energy-related issues which may affect Nantucket's residential, commercial, and municipal electric users. Recommend policy or code amendments as appropriate. Evaluate and explore potential energy production for Nantucket as needed. And serve as a resource for information on renewable and sustainable energy technologies, energy conservation, and any energy-related issues with relevance to Nantucket Island. That's the mission the board charged the committee with. The resolution then would go on. Further, the BOS understands that the Energy Study Committee may recommend, to my knowledge they haven't done so formally yet, that the BOS place an article on the 212 annual town meeting warrant as to appropriate $3+ million to construct a 324-foot wind turbine at the Nantucket landfill. By adoption of this resolution, and I'm not sure there's any inclination to adopt it, but this was my thought process. By adoption of this resolution, the Board of Selection has determined that such a course of action is premature doesn't say no, doesn't say we're not going to continue to study the matter. It says, to me anyway, tonight it's premature. Moving forward, the Board of Selectmen expects that the members of the Energy Study Committee will continue its endeavor by bringing a comprehensive Nantucket energy plan to the board. After considering such a plan, the board anticipates acting expeditiously as possible in regard to its adoption. The plan will help then to guide the continuing priorities and work of the Energy Study Committee. Further, the board also recognizes that one of the ongoing tasks of the Energy Study Committee will be to consider options for alternative energy production on Nantucket within the scope of the plan. A single wind turbine located at the Nantucket landfill is one possibility among others that have been developed to date. This strategy, along with other initiatives, including solar and gasification projects, should be fully analyzed and an impartial assessment of the objectives, benefits, complications, costs, and suitability for Nantucket of these and other possibilities needs to be brought back to the Board of Selectmen for evaluation. This assessment should include studies that evaluate the possible impacts from alternative energy production on Nantucket to the underlying economic, social, and environmental factors that contribute to the unique character of the island. Lastly, the Board of Selectmen believes that close collaboration with a cross-section of the larger community is necessary to bring projects requiring town meeting approval to successful fruition. So that I wanted to read that, gives you my take. My hope is that the board doesn't act to put it on tonight. I recognize that that may change. We have 60 days before the warrant is closed. And I also recognize people may move forward with a special town meeting request. So that's my thoughts. Michael.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board sponsor a warrant article for appropriation for proposed wind turbine at Nantucket landfill on the 2012 annual town meeting warrant.
Okay.
I would second that, but with discussion. I know I haven't spoken yet tonight, and I know that I've been pretty vocal about my challenges with the whole notion of a wind turbine at the landfill. I don't change those perspectives. I have a very difficult time with the idea that the municipality at this time would support, either financially or otherwise, a turbine at the landfill. But I am very sensitive to the fact that the Board of Selectmen has not been charged with being gatekeepers on policy discussion. And therefore, I would very much support this going forward to town meeting for consideration.
Good. So we have a motion and a second, and any further discussion? I think our board members prepared to vote on the motion as it stands. All right, that's perfectly okay. Everybody in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
And those opposed, say nay. Nay. So the board has approved a recommendation that I assume the staff or someone will draft an article and will be included in the annual town meeting. I assume it will ask for an appropriation of $3+ million, and we'll move forward. So thank you all.